Breaking news reaches us this morning from the sacred grounds of Medjugorje, where extraordinary events continue to unfold with unprecedented urgency. What occurred in the early hours of November 13th, 2025, has left spiritual communities worldwide in a state of profound anticipation and reverent preparation. The atmosphere surrounding this holy site has shifted drastically, carrying the weight of divine revelation that can no longer be ignored. Sources close to the visionaries report that today marks a pivotal moment in an ongoing spiritual drama that has captivated millions for decades. The silence that once shrouded certain aspects of celestial messages has been shattered by communications of such gravity that even expert theologians are struggling with their implications. This is not simply another chapter in a long history of supernatural encounters. What emerged today bears the unmistakable signature of divine urgency. The morning began like countless others in this small Bosnian village, but beneath the familiar rhythm, something extraordinary was stirring. Witnesses describe an electric tension in the air, as if the heavens themselves were preparing to speak with unprecedented power. Precisely at 6:45 a.m., the visionary experienced what witnesses call the most intense spiritual encounter of her long ministry. Her appearance afterward spoke of truths so deep that human words struggled to contain them. The Queen of Heaven spoke with maternal urgency that pierced the morning quiet like a clarion call to sleeping souls. The core of this message centers on an imminent spiritual separation, a divine call that will distinguish those who truly belong to God from those who have chosen alternative paths. Before we dive deeper into this spiritual rapture, I have a small request. If you believe the world needs this message of hope and warning, please click the like button and subscribe. Your support helps us amplify this divine call to every corner of the globe. This is not the gentle invitation to conversion that characterized previous messages. Instead, there's a tone of divine authority speaking of realities that require immediate response. The visionary spoke of seeing souls across the earth suddenly awakened by an overwhelming desire for divine union, drawn by what she described as an irresistible spiritual magnetism toward prayer and complete surrender. Those familiar with the long history of Medjugorje recognize that today's message represents a fundamental shift in the nature of the communications received here. For decades, the emphasis was placed on gradual conversion, fasting, and the patient building of faith. The messages consistently invited us to trust in divine timing. However, today's revelation carries the weight of a final appeal, speaking to souls who may have only weeks left to make their eternal choice. This spiritual separation will manifest as a divine magnetism, pulling faithful hearts away from worldly attachments and material obsessions. According to the visionary, those who respond to this call will experience an overwhelming peace. Even as chaos erupts around them, they will find themselves naturally distancing themselves from the poisonous distractions that have captured so many hearts in these final times, drawn instead toward profound prayer and total abandonment to divine providence. Yet, this spiritual rapture comes with a sobering reality that has shaken the visionary to her core. Those who refuse this divine invitation, who choose to remain shackled to worldly systems and earthly illusions, will find themselves spiritually abandoned. Not because God has rejected them, but because they have persistently and willfully rejected Him. The door of mercy, which has stood open for so long, will begin to narrow for those who obstinately turn away from divine love. We live in an era where truth is called falsehood and falsehood is celebrated as progress. Traditional values are mocked while destructive ideologies are embraced as enlightenment. In this atmosphere of moral confusion and spiritual blindness, the Virgin Mary has chosen to pierce the deception with words that burn like fire and illuminate like lightning. The Scriptures warn us of this very hour, where the heart's true allegiance is revealed. Be you also ready, for at what hour you think not, the Son of Man will come. Luke 12, verse 40, Douay Rheims. According to today's revelation, the faithful who respond to the spiritual call will serve as beacons of hope for those still struggling in darkness. They will be spiritually protected and supernaturally strengthened to endure whatever trials may arrive. Their hearts will be filled with divine peace that surpasses all human understanding. But this protection requires a specific kind of preparation, a radical departure from the lukewarm faith of the past. Il messaggio ricevuto a Medjugorje stamattina con istruzioni specifiche per la preparazione durante queste settimane cruciali che precedono il Natale. Il tempo per la fede tiepida è ufficialmente finito. Cio che si avvicina ricci una conversione radical, una preghiera profonda che emerge dal Basir dell'anima e la volana di sacrificare tutto cio che si frappone tra l'individuo e la completa unione con Dio. Oh, l'avermento è chiaro. Un impegno presso con il cor meta non sopravvivere a cio che sta per accadere. I sacerdoti locali riferiscono che, dall'apparizione di questa mattina, c'è stato un aumento senza precedenti di confessioni e richieste di derisione spirituale. Anche I pellegrini che avevano pianificato brevi visite stanno prolungando il loro soggiorno, percependo nel profondo che qualcosa di grandioso e definitivo si sta svolgendo. La campagna della Chiesa, che normalmente su un anno per una gioiosa celebrazione, sembrano ora portare un tono più urgente, chiamando l'anime alla preghiera con un'intensità rinnovata. L'atmosfera stessa di Medjugorje è trasformata drasticamente dall'alba. Quello che una volta era un luogo di dolce pellegrinaggio è diventato qualcosa di più immediato e pressante. E ai visitatori descrivono una sensazione quasi palpabile della presenza divina, come se il cielo stesso fosse siso più vicino alla terra in preparazione di eventi che rimodelleranno l'intera realtà spirituale. L'ufani riferiscono che la gente stessa ha iniziato un periodo di preghiera e digiuno intensivi, preparandosi per il ruolo che sarà chiamata a svolgere in questo dramma in corso. Se senti nel tuo cuore il bisogno di rispondere a questa chiamata divina e vuoi inertia noi in preghiera, scrivi in nei commenti cassati. Oh, il messaggio di oggi chiarisce cio che sta arrivando servire come prova definitiva della fede e come l'ultima opportunità di conversione prima che iniziano a svelarsi misteri ancora più grandi. Questa accelerazione spirituale non è limitata a un piccolo villaggio in Bosnia, ma sta già iniziando a manifestarsi attraverso i continenti, unendo ai fedeli in un risveglio global senza precedent. The spiritual acceleration witnessed in Medjugorje has intensified as evening approaches, with reports flooding in from across the globe of synchronized supernatural phenomena. What began this morning as a localized apparition has evolved into a global movement, suggesting that the spiritual separation described by the visionary is already manifesting across continents. Witnesses in various time zones report experiencing profound spiritual disturbances at the precise moment the Medjugorje apparition concluded. Ireland. In a small chapel, a group of elderly women reciting the rosary suddenly felt an overwhelming compulsion to prostrate themselves before the Blessed Sacrament. They describe a divine magnetism so powerful that resistance felt impossible. The Philippines. Similar accounts emerge as entire families abandon their evening routines to gather in spontaneous prayer, driven by an unexplainable urgency they could not rationalize. Mexico. Contemplative nuns who had followed a strict prayer schedule for decades found themselves drawn into prolonged periods of adoration, unable to leave their chapel despite the late hour. Their Mother Superior described it as a spiritual gravity, pulling their hearts deeper into divine communion than ever before. These simultaneous events across diverse cultures indicate the global nature of the Virgin Mary's revelation. The spiritual call is not limited by geography, but extends to every corner of the earth where hearts remain open to divine intervention. The magnetism drawing souls toward God operates according to spiritual laws, bypassing physical borders. Vatican sources, speaking on condition of anonymity, confirm that reports of these extraordinary phenomena have reached the highest levels of the church hierarchy throughout the day. While official statements remain cautious, Insiders describe an unprecedented level of attention being paid to the developments in Medjugorje and similar manifestations worldwide. The sheer volume and consistency of these reports have made them impossible to dismiss, even among the most skeptical observers. The urgency of this global awakening reminds us of the power found in true repentance. The Lord is nigh unto them that are of a contrite heart, and he will save the humble in spirit. Psalm 33, verse 19, Douay reams. As global tensions, from war to economic uncertainty, deepen daily, the spiritual separation takes on prophetic dimensions. The spiritual call is manifesting differently depending on the preparation of each soul. Those already committed to prayer and sacrifice report an exponential amplification of their spiritual experiences, as a divine grace is multiplying their efforts. Others, previously lukewarm in their faith, describe sudden awakenings that have completely reordered their priorities in just a matter of hours. Perhaps most surprisingly, this phenomenon is particularly pronounced among the youth, the demographic often seen as the most resistant to religious influence today. Youth groups across Europe report that teenagers with little prior interest in spiritual matters are suddenly demanding instruction on prayer, asking deep theological questions, and voluntarily joining religious activities they once ignored. Educational institutions run by religious orders describe dramatic behavioral shifts since the morning's apparition. Chapels that were typically empty are now filled with young people seeking quiet reflection. Confession lines have become so long that additional priests have been summoned to meet the overwhelming demand for the sacrament. However, this spiritual separation is also creating challenging dynamics within homes. Spouses report feeling spiritually disconnected from partners who show no response to the divine call, and parents watch their children experience profound awakenings while they themselves feel nothing. Yet, rather than creating bitterness, these divisions are generating an intense urgency for intercessory prayer among those who recognize what is happening. To join our community and never miss an inspiring story of divine intervention and spiritual preparedness, consider clicking like and subscribing to the channel. This sudden clarity in the hearts of the young reminds us of the promise in the book of Joel. And it shall come to pass after this, that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions. Joel 2, verse 28, Douay reams. As individual lives are transformed, the impact is even reaching the medical and business sectors, where the physical world is struggling to keep up with the spiritual surge. The impact of this spiritual acceleration has even reached the professional world, defying modern logic. Medical professionals working in Catholic hospitals report an unprecedented number of patients requesting the anointing of the sick and spiritual counseling, even when their conditions are not terminal. These individuals describe a nagging sensation that time is running out for spiritual preparation, though they cannot explain the source of this conviction. Chaplains are working day and night to meet the sudden surge in sacramental requests. The business community has also felt the shock waves. Executives report employees suddenly requesting time off for religious retreats, pilgrimages, and extended prayer commitments. In some departments, productivity has slowed as workers find themselves unable to focus on worldly concerns, feeling pulled instead toward reflection and spiritual readings. Airlines serving major pilgrimage sites report a massive spike in urgent bookings that began just hours after Medjugorje apparition concluded. Medjugorje itself is now completely overwhelmed, with local accommodations filled to capacity. Pilgrims describe feeling compelled to travel immediately, unable to wait for better financial circumstances or more convenient timing. This economic shift extends into the world of charity. Charitable organizations are seeing an unprecedented increase in donations as individuals liquidate non-essential assets to support religious and humanitarian causes. People are giving away possessions they once considered indispensable, driven by a sudden clarity regarding eternal priorities over temporal one. Religious bookstores have sold out of prayer books, rosaries, and devotion materials faster than they can be restocked. Digital platforms hosting religious content have seen traffic increases of several 100% since dawn. And as these material things lose their grip on the human heart, the spiritual rapture is forming distinct communities of faith, drawing believers together while the divide with the worldly world grows wide. The spiritual separation manifesting globally is creating distinct communities of response. Those experiencing the divine call find themselves naturally gravitating toward one another, forming prayer groups, support networks, and spiritual partnerships with an intensity and commitment never seen before. These connections transcend traditional boundaries of nationality, language, and social class, united solely by their shared response to the celestial invitation. Simultaneously, those unaffected by the spiritual magnetism seem to consolidate around opposing values with equal intensity. This polarization is becoming visible in public discourse, workplace interactions, and even within family dynamics. The fundamental spiritual division described by the Virgin Mary is now manifesting in tangible social realities. The weeks remaining until Christmas now carry a weight that extends far beyond traditional holiday expectations. Every passing day brings further reports of spiritual phenomena, intensifying preparation among the faithful and deepening the awareness that humanity stands at a crossroads of eternal significance. The events unfolding since this morning's apparition mark a turning point in human history that cannot be ignored. The spiritual rapture revealed in Medjugorje is already sifting souls across the globe, drawing the faithful into divine union while time remains. These final weeks before Christmas will determine eternal destinies. The Queen of Heaven has spoken her final appeal. The urgency of His choice is the ultimate test of our devotion, as we are reminded in the Gospel. Watch ye therefore, because you know not what hour your Lord will come. Matthew 24, verse 42, Douay Reims. The sifting is here. The magnetism is pulling. The question is no longer when it will happen, but which side you have chosen. As we conclude this urgent report on the global spiritual awakening, we invite you to take your stand. Comment, Jesus is King, below to affirm your allegiance to the light. And to continue your journey of preparation, click on the video appearing on your screen now for a vital message on the signs to come.